The original Star Wars Battlefront is home to many iconic maps. Nearly all planets seen in the first 5 films are represented. Even locations that didn't see any full-scale war in the movies become battlegrounds within this game. One such planet is Kamino, the tempestuous home of the Republic's Grand Army of clone troopers. During its appearance in Episode 2, the only fighting Kamino is host to is a short skirmish between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett, as the bounty hunter tries to leave the planet. However, the idea of a full-scale battle on the homeworld of the clones is a hard idea to pass up, which is why Kamino has seen its fair share of invasions within other media, including comics, TV shows, and, in this case, video games. The image of clone troopers defending their home is powerful. One of the few things in the galaxies these manufactured soldiers have any strong connection to. But how does Kamino fare in Battlefront? It's a map I've been very anxious to return to. I started this series with Bespin Platforms, my personal favorite map in this game despite its flaws. Now theoretically, Kamino has a similar layout, being a collection of platforms, so I was curious to see if I would like Tipoca City as well, but platforms alone do not a good map make. As always, I will be playing on medium and hard difficulty across the original Xbox and Classic Collection versions of the game. And if this is your first time here, I have reviewed many of the other maps found in Star Wars Battlefront. So, if you enjoy this video, there are plenty more to go check out. Kamino's map is Tipoca City. This is the name of the location Obi-Wan visits in Attack of the Clones. The map covers a small portion of this city, namely a collection of platforms and one singular saucer-like building. In the background and skybox, you can see what is most likely the rest of Tipoca. However, there is no immediately obvious physical connection between those platforms and our own. Now, when Obi-Wan first arrives on world, you can see a separate set of structures in the background. These two are disconnected, but due to their proximity, I'd imagine there's still some extension of Tipoca. As for the actual map we get, there are 7 command posts distributed between 8 platform rings and 1 proper building. According to the post's name, this building is a cloning facility. The outdoor spawn areas are simply labeled alphanumerically, with Greek letters, those being alphas 1, 2, and 3 on the north end of the platforms, and betas 1, 2, and 3 clumped together at the bottom. This is a bit of a side tangent, but do you ever think about how funny it is that in a far-off galaxy they still use Greek letters? Like, I know they still have their own alphabet, Arabesh, and Galactic Basic, which is their equivalent of English, or whatever native tongue you watch these in. But they use the Greek alphabet as well, and they use it very frequently. Obviously, this is just one of those things you aren't supposed to think about, but I got curious, and I checked out if there's a lore explanation. And of course, with this being Star Wars, there is. It's called Old Taiwanese, and it's used how we use Greek and Latin today. Alright, let's get back to the map. Kamino is one of 4 maps in this game locked into a specific era, that being the Clone Wars. So the CIS and the Republic are the only factions we need to worry about. This is a map where each side starts with only a single command post, that being the cloning facility for the clones, and Platform Alpha for the droids. The others are free to be taken, so it's a race to see who captures what first. Seeing as it's their home, let's start by looking at the clones. The cloning facility post is situated in the center of this large building. 2 ceiling-mounted chairs hang down, being the only real cover in this room. 3 hallways each lead to a different exit in the facility, 2 heading to the north and south, and 1 that leads straight out to the western front of the building. Each of these paths theoretically send you to another command post, but none of them are particularly straight shots. The southern exit places you close to the clump of beta post, but will still require you to follow a great deal of the outer facility's walkway before coming to the bridge you must take to cross. Taking the opposite northern path and you have a similar experience, just with a bit of a shorter walk to the elevated Alpha 2. The direct path in front of you is a large hallway towards the outer balcony of the facility, which leads down to a platform adjacent to the CIS starting area, meaning this is the fastest path to the action. On the Separatist side of things, Alpha 1 has less options in terms of routes. At least one platform separates it from any other command post, and you can only head either up or down to the Alpha or Beta clusters respectively. Now this distance is similar to the distance clones must travel on paper, however the routes are a bit more direct. Also, by starting already outside, the droids can set up some level of defenses. The clones will really only be coming at you from one angle, so snipers can prepare themselves while other units hop into the overabundance of turrets on this map, which we will be talking about them plenty enough soon. Plus, the CIS has another advantage. Both sides come with a single unit with great mobility. The Republic has the Jet Trooper, who can use his pack to cut across from platform to platform without the need of a bridge. This can reduce the time needed to get from point A to point B, just you need to be careful about your fuel consumption. On the other side of things, the Seps have the Droideka, which, while not able to fly, it does have one of the fastest moving speeds in this game while in its rolling mode. This means that while still restricted to the platforms, they can zip by much faster. Now with this in mind, think about where each team starts. The droids start outside, already in the middle of the action. Meanwhile, the clones are indoors, and pretty strictly railroaded in their pathing options. And being inside means that the jetpack is at a disadvantage until you reach the door. Sure, you can still activate it to help you go a bit faster, but its full usefulness doesn't come into play until you're outdoors in the elements. Once the battle begins, you need to choose which command post you want to go for first. Both areas have them bunched very close together. Alphas 2 and 3 are separated only by a single bridge. Usually, clones will get to Alpha 2 due to its proximity, and the Seps will make it to 3, which can turn these upper levels into a full-on shootout as soon as you spawn in at one of these posts. Due to their elevation, both areas provide a great vantage point to shoot down towards some of the lower platforms. Alpha 2 especially benefits from this, as you can cut off any reinforcements coming in from A1. But if you think those posts are close, just wait until you see the beta platforms. These three sit right next to each other, making a triangle. With this ridiculously close proximity, they have a direct impact on each other. Usually, the Republic will capture B2 and the droids will get B3, but this isn't always the case. Besides, Beta 1 is the post you really want to take. Being elevated, it provides overwatch on both of the other platforms, making it the most easily defensible. Typically, whoever owns 2 of these command posts will end up taking the third. But if you had to go for a single post, Beta 1 is what you should take. Now all of this makes the beta spawns basically a non-factor for the team who owns all 3, as their relationship to each other creates a solid defense, meaning you'll really never have to worry about one of them being taken. Heading on to the gameplay side of things, there is a unique element on this map. Seeing as this is the home of the clones, they actually get an extra 20 reinforcements. I wondered if this was because Kamino is the Republic's home planet in the Galactic Conquest game mode. However, when booting up the other 3 factions' home worlds, those being Hoth for the Rebellion, Endor for the Empire, and the previously talked about Geonosis for the droids, they all started with an even reinforcement count. Historical campaign will sometimes alter the reinforcement count, but to my knowledge, Kamino is the only map where this is a permanent addition. And while it is certainly helpful, it does not result in a guaranteed win for the clones. 20 extra units doesn't make as big of a difference as you would think. And I noticed when going back through my footage, in matches where the Republic won, they would still have a lower ending reinforcement count than the CIS would have whenever they won. And remember, that's the numbers after those extra reinforcements have been added. Ironically, it seems the clones have a harder time on this map. And personally, I felt this reflected in the gameplay. Then again, if I'm being honest, I just had a hard time with this map in general. Because, well, this is the first map in the series that I just didn't enjoy playing on. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying, because sometimes people online will make assumptions too quickly when the reality is a bit more nuanced. I am not saying Kamino is a bad map, nor am I saying that it is poorly designed. I'm just stating that while playing matches to get footage, I didn't have nearly as much fun as I did on the others I've looked at so far. Some of this may come down to just personal taste, but I also found a few hiccups in the gameplay that really frustrated me. For one, I felt incredibly restrained on Kamino in a number of different ways. First, there was just a physical sense. Anytime I spawned at a command post which was adjacent to an enemy spawn, I felt like I just couldn't escape. This mostly happened at Alphas 2 and 3, but the same thing could occur at the beta post. As soon as you choose your class, you're in the middle of the action and have to choose how to engage. If I stayed put and defended the base, then other command posts I was not at would start falling. If I pushed into the enemy's base, it would take several tries before successfully making it over there, only to find that most of my allies would not come and back me up, sometimes even after I used squad commands. So I'd be stuck in the middle of a round platform where opponents could spawn anywhere around me, resulting in a frustratingly slow process requiring a lot of precision with very little help. But then you might ask, well, why even stick around? But the problem is, if I chose not to engage and just left the area outright, I'd either end up catching a stray sniper round from one of the higher platforms, or by my leaving, my allies would no longer be strong enough to hold the post themselves, especially if it was the clones. It made a lot of my actions feel useless, like anything I did to contribute would be nullified by some other factor. I'd be stuck on the same platform so long that I just felt inept. Another thing is the ludicrous amount of choke points. Every single bridge connecting two areas acts as a natural bottleneck, and not a very wide one. I'd say each bridge can only accommodate about 2 units walking abreast. And with that small of a width, your only real option is to move forward or move backwards. Dodging and strafing is virtually off the table. And while this does affect your enemies, meaning they have nowhere to go, you and your allies have nowhere to go as well, meaning massive casualties on both sides. But then there's the ever infamous Droideka. I'm sure some of you are sick of me bringing this thing up in nearly every video, and while my opinions on it have changed drastically, I do think it's a more balanced unit than I originally gave it credit for, it still has those few instances where its powerful nature just shine. Like on a bridge where a single Droideka with its shields up is enough to completely block the walkway. Now yes, this means it's an easy target if you focus all your fire, but your allies don't like to pick just one target, they shoot at anything. Plus, its twin blasters turn the bridge into a target range, a straight line where it can rack up dozens of kills, all while you have no way to escape it. This is another reason I felt so stuck on certain platforms. And then there's those blasted turrets. Appearing in nearly every map in the game, the gun turrets are a neutral element both sides can use for defense. It's an aspect of the game I rarely think about, as it turns the operator into a stationary target. I rarely use them due to this fact, coupled with their typically limited firing lanes. There are some maps where they work well, and then there's Tipoca City. Almost every platform has 2 or 3 of these turrets, and the AI love to use them. Due to the open nature of this map and the narrow paths units get funneled down, these turrets can rule this Battlefront, having an open shot on nearly every location. Their one weakness is how the operator is exposed to an easy headshot. But almost as soon as the pilot is dead, another will come and take his place. And so many can potentially have an angle on you that by the time you're dealing with one, another will take its shot. Destroying them only delays things, as the pilot class makes it his personal mission to see every single one in working order. Now you can somewhat bait the enemy using this. Get a sniper rifle, find a turret, and bam, nearly infinite headshots if the enemies are close enough. And lastly, there's a few other little unintended things that get to me. Like how I got shoved by my allies so often on this map. It's hard to fully show off in this video, but due to the narrow confines of the bridge, there were several times where my aim would get thrown off just because an ally would bump into me. Or better yet, they would push through the crowd just to stand right in front of my shot. Needless to say, I got a lot of team kills. Oh, and one final thing since I'm already on the complaint train. Sometimes I'd find my shots getting caught by the invisible walls that make up the actual hitbox of the railings around each platform, which are typically higher than what is shown to you. So, there were times where I thought I had a cheeky snipe or had drawn a bead with my EMP rocket, and I would still miss. But let's take a quick break from the See You Dad skill issue show, although trust me, we will be coming back to it. Now so far I've talked about a lot of things that I don't like on the gameplay side, but I have neglected to mention some of the cooler aspects of Kamino, namely its design. While the platforms themselves are the primary element, they are not the only thing on this map. Almost every single command post has a small gazebo area jutting out from it. Sometimes you'll spawn inside one of these rather than the larger central platform. They make for an incredible sniping position, as it places you at a slight angle away from the fighting, and there's windows which offer some level of cover, a very rare commodity on this map. Now these terraces are too far out of range to capture or defend a command post, but they are the perfect distance to shoot towards those who are. There are other juts out over the water as well. They typically end in a small platform, most of them with another auto turret. However, I believe at one point in time these were intended for something else, but we'll be coming to that soon. Now, despite being called the cloning facility, we don't actually see any of the cloning chambers or training rooms that we do in the films. Instead, we really only have this meeting room where Obi-Wan met with Kamino's Prime Minister and first learned of the Republic's new army. It does capture the minimalism and utilitarianism of the Kaminoan architecture. I just wish we saw a bit more of it. But as far as what we do see, this certainly does look and feel like Kamino, which, if you recall from my past videos, is one of the criteria that I listed to make a solid map. To refresh you, I think there's 3 things that every Battlefront map needs. It must make you feel like you're in the middle of a massive battle. There should also be multiple ways to take part in that battle, and of course, this needs to feel like a location from Star Wars. Like we just said, Tipoca City largely hits this last point. What we see reflects the rainy exterior of Kamino, but I do find myself wishing we saw more of the interior. In the film, we saw hallways overlooking vats of clones, legions of soldiers equipping themselves and preparing for battle, and I wish we saw any of that on this map. The little interior we do have only reflects that conference room, and possibly one of the doors on this hallway leads to Jango and Boba's apartment. Now, as I've stated before, that list I mentioned a moment ago is not the end-all of a Battlefront map design. However, I do think each of those elements are important, namely that middle one. However, I think Tipoca City falls a bit short in this regard. Multiple ways to engage in a battle doesn't just mean having a mix of vehicles, but even a mix of units. And yet, I think for both sides, only 2 units are truly capable of contributing to the battle in a meaningful way. Those are the Marksman class and the Special units, the Jet Trooper and Droideka. By nature of being interconnected and open platforms, these units are bound to do better. Snipers in particular. If you want to get any meaningful amount of kills, this is the class to use. Not only is virtually the whole of the map open to you, but you can utilize those little gazebos from earlier to have more cover. And, by carefully maneuvering your recon droid and calling down an orbital strike, you can clear out the narrow bridges and their entrances. The only real drawback is that sniping does require you to largely stay still, which can make you an easy target for enemy sharpshooters. But this playstyle is one of the few ways that you can actually stay alive in this fight, allowing you to hang back from the fighting with a fast and accurate projectile. I mentioned the special units several times already. They have incredible utility here, the Droideka in particular. The narrow walkways and high rate of fire of their blasters turns every bridge into a kill zone. The shield can also block shots and protect allies standing behind you, as well as covering the entire path. Now, the turrets here do work as a surprisingly good counter to the destroyer droids. As for all the strength behind them, Droidekas do struggle with precision, so facing a turret head-on is more likely to end with their shields dropping before the operator does. But outside of this, they are vicious killing machines. So much so that while playing as a marksman, I often found myself willing to waste an entire orbital strike just to clear out one Droideka. Now, the Jet Trooper also works as a counterpick to the Droidekas. Usually both EMP Blast will drop its shields, meaning you can switch to your pistol and quickly finish them off. This is the best way to use your primary, as the Jet Trooper's rockets are a bit too slow to be reliable on these larger platforms. Enemies will just move out of the way long before your missile actually hits. But again, the mobility of the jetpack lets you create your own paths through Kamino. It can open up flanks, let you bypass heavy choke points. The only downside is by doing this you will cut yourself off from your squad. And anytime you lack support, it's going to be a much harder fight to win. But still not an impossible one. But I really can't recommend using anything other than these two units if you want to win. The Heavy's rockets are too slow and could kill teammates packed into an area. The Soldier is decent, sure, but getting on the front lines gets you killed quicker. The only one left with some use is the Pilot, whose fusion cutter can repair turrets, but you as the player will rarely be doing this, as the AI prioritizes this. This all means that you're stuck playing one of two roles if you want to do the best you can on the highest difficulty. But at the same time, I think the people playing at the highest difficulty are fine playing specific roles. Now, there's not too much in the way of immediate trivia for this map. Now, of course, Kamino reappeared in Battlefront 2. However, the map was not the same. Platform layouts and connections were different, as well as a second building was placed on the opposite side of the map with a far more detailed interior. I was tempted to talk about it here, but it's gonna get its own video once we hit Battlefront 2. The attack on Kamino that we play in the campaign, as well as this level itself, is likely the same one seen in the Republic comics. I want to say it was specifically Republic issue number 50, where the Separatists attacked Kamino only mere months after the Clone Wars began. And of course, years later, a similar event would happen in the Clone Wars TV series. But the most fascinating fact has to do with cut content. If you look at the preview for Kamino in the map selector, you can see ships flying around. The original plan for Kamino was to include starfighters, making this map even closer to something like Bespin platforms. I think you can only see Jedi fighters and Republic gunships, which do make me wonder if those were the only vehicles planned to be present, since the Jedi Starfighter is what Obi-Wan flies down to the planet, and, well, anything connected with the clone troopers is naturally going to be here. However, this is purely speculation. There's no evidence that this was going to be the case. There also would have been anti-air cannons, which I believe would have filled many of these extended platforms. It all really makes me wonder how different the map would have played with the ability to fly around from place to place. I think the dynamics certainly would have changed. However, I don't have immediate access to a modded copy of Battlefront at the moment. However, I am hoping to make a video talking about the beta versions of planets at a later date, and I'll be curious to see just how much Kamino changes with this inclusion. Because the more I think about it, the more I feel like it was really designed around that particular type of gameplay. As you've probably guessed, I didn't particularly enjoy my return to Kamino Tipoca City, not nearly as much as I have some other maps. Then again, a lot of my criticisms come down to my personal preference. Admittedly, I am not as familiar with original Battlefront as much as I am with Battlefront 2, so whenever I do come and play it, I do so far more casually. That's my sensibilities. I play games to enjoy my time with them, and there's only a handful of instances where that enjoyment comes from the challenge and how far I can push myself. But out of the games that I do enjoy doing that, Battlefront 1 is not one of them. But at the same time, there are others who do get that type of enjoyment out of the higher level of skill found in this game. And I'm willing to bet that it's those players who enjoy Tipoca a little bit more. It offers quite the challenge, particularly to the clones. I feel like I can't definitively prove it, but after 10 plus matches, I feel that there are minor design elements at play, putting the Republic at a major disadvantage here. Mainly things like the clones getting railroaded into more deadly choke points, and they can't prepare as quickly as the Separatists can. But since I can't point to anything specific, I feel like I'd just be senselessly ranting. And yet, there are still very physical, very real design choices that I don't like, such as the gratuitous amount of choke points, which become extremely detrimental at high difficulty since friendly AI does not scale with the enemy. In fact, I may be wrong on this, but I want to say not only does hard mode make your enemies stronger, it makes your allies intentionally dumber. Pair this with the insane lack of cover and the close proximity of certain posts, and it feels like you'll fight forever in a single location just to win one battle, only for your allies to lose 2 other engagements on the other side of the map. Once again, I don't think this map is abysmally bad or beyond saving. It's just one I don't see myself ever wanting to return to, at least on high difficulties. It's funny though, because, like I said, Bespin Platforms, my favorite map, seems to have a lot in common with Kamino on paper. But the main difference is the layout. Now, Bespin still has choke points, but it mostly takes place here, on this single stretch in the middle of the map. But even this hallway is far wider than anything Kamino has to offer. And, as I said, it has some level of cover. You also have options in how to approach it. You have a chance to survive and last longer. If I can be abstract for a moment, both of these maps are meat grinders, but whereas Bespin turns you into ground beef, Kamino crams you into a sausage casing. If you can't tell, I'm kind of struggling to say much more about Kamino. It feels very simple in its approach, but I think it's missing something. I don't have the same feelings on Battlefront 2's version of Kamino, so maybe when I cover that map, the things I don't like about this version will be made clearer. Perhaps Tipoca would have benefited from the inclusion of starfighters. It certainly was designed with them in mind. And perhaps ultimately that is the missing element here. Either way, I feel somewhat unsatisfied. Not only with the map, but even this video on the map. I feel like I could have said more, but I just can't figure out what else I want to say. Kamino Tipoca City may just be designed in a way that's counter to my personal preferences, making it an incredibly challenging and somewhat frustrating map here in Star Wars Battlefront. But what are your thoughts on Kamino? I'm very interested to hear from the people who do enjoy this map. Again, just because I don't like something doesn't mean that it's bad, and it's not like I hate Kamino. Although I know I am going to hate the copious amount of comments of people saying, oh, get good and you're bad at the game. Look, I never claimed to be an expert in playing this game. I am far and away not the best Battlefront player. but I do like analyzing these maps. And I want to thank you again for watching this far and letting me talk about them. If you want to see me talk about other maps in this game, I'll link that playlist in the description below, and I don't know. There might be another map I want to look at soon, but I think it's about time I let you guys choose what map you want to see next as well. But in the meantime, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.